In December 2001, Argentina collapsed. The government froze bank accounts. The peso lost 75% of its value overnight. Unemployment hit 25%. People were rioting in the streets. Banks were literally barricaded shut. And somewhere in Buenos Aires, four friends sat down in a bar called Down Town Matías and said, "This is the perfect time to start a technology company." 23 years later, their company, Globant, has 30,000 employees in 35 countries, generates $2.45 billion in annual revenue, builds software for Disney, Google, FIFA, and Coca-Cola, sponsors a Formula One driver, and trades on the New York Stock Exchange. It is the largest technology company to ever come out of Argentina. This is the story of how four engineers turned a $5,000 bet into the most improbable tech giant in Latin America. The bar where it started was on the corner of Viamonte and Reconquista in Retiro, a business district in Buenos Aires. The year was 2002. Martín Migoya, an electrical engineer with an MBA, had been investing in stocks. He'd lost money on almost everything except one investment, shares in an Indian IT outsourcing company. That single profitable bet gave him an idea. If India could export software development services to the world, why couldn't Argentina? The talent was there. Argentine universities produce world-class engineers. The cost structure was favorable. After the peso devaluation, Argentine labor was extraordinarily cheap in dollar terms. And unlike India, Argentina sat in the same time zones as the United States. Migoya called three friends: Guibert Englebien, a self-taught programmer since age 12, who had already started and failed at 6 companies; Martín Umaran, and Nestor Nochetti. All four were engineers. None of them had significant capital. They pooled $5,000, roughly the price of a used car. And in January 2003, they opened a 30-square-meter office in La Plata, a university city 60 kilometers south of Buenos Aires. The name came from a program Englebien wrote to check domain availability. They liked the sound of Globant, a mashup of global and a suffix common to tech companies at the time. The domain was available. They registered it. Globant was born. The first challenge was existential. Who would hire 4 unknown Argentine engineers in the middle of the worst economic crisis in the country's history? Argentina in 2003 was not a brand anyone associated with technology. It was associated with default, devaluation, and political chaos. Their strategy was brutally pragmatic. The 4 founders made a list of every person they knew at a multinational company. Then they booked flights to the United States and the United Kingdom, flights they could barely afford, and walked into every meeting they could get. Their first major client was lastminute.com, a London-based online travel retailer. That single contract changed everything. Revenue went from $200,000 in year 1 to $3 million in year 2, a 15-fold increase. The company grew from 4 people to 70 in 6 months. But here's the strategic decision that mattered most in those early years. Most IT outsourcing firms from emerging markets competed on one thing: cost. They were the cheap option. Migoya and his co-founders made a deliberate choice to compete on something different: innovation. They didn't want to be the company you hired to maintain your legacy code. They wanted to be the company you hired to build your next product. In 2005, MIT's Sloan School of Management published a case study on Globant called "Leading the IT Revolution in Latin America." The company had barely 200 employees, but MIT recognized something. Globant wasn't an outsourcing firm. It was a product engineering company that happened to be based in Argentina. Then came the moment that put Globant on the global map. In 2006, Google selected Globant as its first technology partner in Latin America. Google, the most selective technology company in the world, chose 4 Argentine engineers over every other option in the region. This wasn't about cost. Google could hire anyone. This was about capability. That Google relationship opened every door. If Google trusted Globant, other companies would too. Electronic Arts came next. Then came a series of financing rounds. $7 million from Riverwood Capital in 2006, $13 million from Riverwood and FTV Capital in 2008. By 2008, revenue hit $40 million. The 30-square-meter office in La Plata was a distant memory. Globant introduced what it calls the studio model, organizing its engineers not by client or geography, but by domain expertise. There's a studio for artificial intelligence, one for gaming, one for digital media, one for cloud infrastructure, one for user experience. Each studio operates like a specialized practice within a consulting firm, but staffed entirely by engineers. Today, there are over 30 studios. This structure is what allows Globant to pitch Disney on its entertainment expertise and Coca-Cola on its consumer experience expertise from the same company. On July 18, 2014, Globant went public on the New York Stock Exchange at $10 per share. It was the first Argentine technology company to list on the NYSE, a symbolic milestone for a country that exports soybeans, beef, and lithium, not software. The stock was an extraordinary performer for 7 years. From the $10 IPO to its all-time high of $355 in November 2021, Globant returned over 3,400%. A $1,000 investment at IPO would have been worth $35,000 at the peak. The company's market capitalization briefly exceeded $8 billion. Then came the tech correction. Rising interest rates destroyed the valuations of growth companies across the board. Globant was not immune. The stock fell from $355 to roughly $45 today, an 87% decline from peak. Market capitalization sits at approximately $2 billion, down from $8 billion. The numbers tell a complicated story. Revenue continues to grow, $2.45 billion in 2025, up from $2.42 billion in 2024. But growth decelerated sharply from 15% to under 2%. Net income fell 38% to $104 million. The AI disruption that benefits Globant's product offerings simultaneously threatens its traditional services model. If AI can write code, why do you need 30,000 engineers? Globant's response has been aggressive. The company launched what it calls AI pods, autonomous teams that combine human engineers with AI tools to deliver projects faster and at lower cost. It introduced a token-based subscription model to replace the traditional per-engineer billing, and it's building a pipeline that exceeded $3.7 billion in 2025, up 30% year over year. CEO Magoya has said plainly, "We are not riding the AI wave. We want to redefine what the next era of professional services looks like." To understand Globant's moat, you have to understand why IT services from Latin America is structurally different from IT services from India. India dominates global IT outsourcing. Tata Consultancy Services, Infosys, Wipro, HCL. These companies employ millions of people and generate tens of billions in revenue. They compete primarily on scale and cost. When a Fortune 500 company needs 1,000 engineers to maintain an enterprise system, they call an Indian firm. Globant doesn't play that game. Its average project is smaller, more specialized, and more creative. Building a streaming app for a major media company, designing the fan experience platform for FIFA, creating the digital storefront for a luxury brand. These are product engineering engagements, not cost reduction exercises, and they command significantly higher margins. The Latin American talent advantage is real but nuanced. Argentine, Colombian, Brazilian, and Mexican engineers operate in time zones compatible with North American clients, a massive advantage over India for collaborative, agile development work. Cultural alignment with Western clients is closer. English proficiency is high in the tech workforce, and the cost structure, while higher than India, is still 60 to 70% below equivalent US talent. Globant has also built something the Indian IT giants haven't, a brand associated with creativity. Working for Disney on theme park experiences, for Electronic Arts on gaming platforms, for Coca-Cola on consumer engagement. These are not commodity IT projects. They're the kind of work that attracts top engineering talent, which in turn attracts more premium clients. It's a flywheel built on reputation, not on price. And then there's the Franco Colapinto story, a detail that perfectly captures who Globant is. In early 2024, Globant began sponsoring Franco Colapinto, a 21-year-old Argentine racing driver, during his Formula 2 season. When Williams Racing needed a last-minute replacement for their Formula One team later that year, Colapinto got the call. And there was the Globant logo, on the car, on the suit, on the global broadcast, seen by hundreds of millions of viewers in one of the most expensive advertising platforms in the world. For a technology company from La Plata, having its brand on a Formula One car alongside Google, Microsoft, and Gulf Oil is not just marketing. It's a statement. We belong on the global stage. Magoya and his co-founders bet on Colapinto the same way they bet on themselves 23 years ago, backing Argentine talent that the world hadn't discovered yet. The risks to Globant are real and worth stating plainly. The AI threat is existential for the IT services industry. If large language models can generate code, design user interfaces, and automate testing, the demand for human engineers could decline structurally. Globant's token-based model is an attempt to get ahead of this, but the transition is unproven. Revenue growth stalled at under 2% in 2025. The stock has lost 87% from its peak. Client concentration is a concern. The largest client represents nearly 9% of revenue. Currency exposure to the Argentine peso and other Latin American currencies creates volatility. And Globant competes for talent with every big tech company and startup in the region. But the counter-argument is that AI doesn't replace the need for people who understand what to build. AI is a tool. Knowing how to use it to create a compelling fan experience for FIFA, or a seamless streaming platform for Disney, or a next-generation banking app for Santander, that requires human judgment, creativity, and domain expertise. Globant's bet is that the future of professional services isn't fewer engineers. It's engineers amplified by AI, delivering 10 times the output at the same cost. If they're right, the current stock price is absurdly cheap. 4 friends in a bar during the worst crisis in Argentine history. $5,000, a 30-square-meter office, no clients, no reputation, no safety net. Just a bet that Argentine engineers could build software as good as anyone in the world, and a refusal to compete on being cheap. 23 years later, Globant has built the technology behind Disney's theme parks, Google's infrastructure, FIFA's digital platforms, and the streaming services you use every day. It has created 30,000 jobs across Latin America and proven that you don't need to be in Silicon Valley to build a world-class technology company. You just need 4 friends, a bar, and the conviction that crisis is the best time to start. Globant's moat isn't technology. It's the culture of building world-class products from a place nobody expected it. And that moat gets deeper every year someone else tries to replicate it and fails.